Hey everybody, welcome back to Talking About Success. I'm your host, Jack Canfield. My next guest is Jenny Edwards. She's the author of a really cool book called Bumping Down Highways. And 4 years ago, she basically sold everything, moved into an RV, and has been on the road nonstop for 4 years. And we're going to talk about that, not so much from the perspective of, what's RVing all about. Most of you kind of have some sense of that. We'll get a little of that. But really, the underlying message I think that's more important is that she conquered a fear and did the things she wanted to do, and basically is telling you that you can do it too. So we're going to talk about that. So thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Really appreciate it. So let's just start at the beginning. How did you go from, let's call it your normal life, to living in an RV full time?
I needed to get across the country from Florida to Oregon to take my dogs to my sons, and I was used to first class airfare, 5-star dining in restaurants, and I was going to have to stay in these little cabins that were all wood with no running water, and I thought I'd rush across the country so I didn't have to do it for long. And I fell in love with it. I slowed down. I didn't rush. And I went across the country in my SUV with only the barest of essentials and came home and bought an RV so I could do more traveling.
I love it. I love it. Now, I've spent time in an RV. I spent over, I think it was about 6 weeks, couple months in Mexico and Guatemala. So they're small. I don't care what size one you buy. They're not like as big as a house. And so one of the questions I think that the viewers probably want to know is, where do you keep all your stuff? How does that work?
So I started, that little first one was only 19 feet long and it was awful. It was horrible. So now I have a 40-foot Class A motorhome. And in a motorhome, you've got storage inside, but the under bays, there are bays like on a bus that you lift up and you have things in there. But everything I own is in my RV. I have
Everything
less stuff.
Yeah. Is that freeing, or is it a sense of do you ever go oh gosh, I wish I had?
When I first started getting rid of things, I realized I was cleaning out my closet and I had 47 little black dresses. What woman needs 47 little black dresses? And so at first it was hard to get rid of things, but when I finally started letting go of them, it was pretty amazing. And I actually wear clothes out now. Like, who does that anymore? But just from washing them.
That's way cool. That's way cool. Now, I probably misstated when I said you're on the road every single day, but how long when you leave in an RV and you go on a trip, how long are your trips usually?
Well, my trips, I'm constantly on a trip.
Because you're in the RV,
yeah,
even when you're parked somewhere.
Right?
Yeah.
So the longest time I drive in a day is about 250 miles, or from the time I leave in the morning to the time I stop, about 5 hours, the stop for the end of the day. So, but I might stop in a rest area to sleep because I want to get to the Grand Canyon and I'm 3 days away. Or I might get to Idaho and say, oh my gosh, I love this town. I don't book sites very often. I don't make big plans. So I fall in love with a park and say, oh, I want to see more here. And so I'm there 3 to 5 days. So there is no amount of time.
So normally you don't have to get anywhere by when, you can just have...
Yeah, when I was planning to come out here, I planned 3 weeks. So I knew that I didn't have to rush. I had to get there. And sometimes you have to have a end date, but I give myself plenty of time. I might get there early, I might get there on time.
Now, I imagine a lot of questions people would have is, here you are, you're a single woman traveling around by yourself out in the wilderness sometimes, etc. Were you ever afraid?
I'm afraid a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm not fearful of, I'm not afraid in the sense that maybe a lot of people might think. People ask me that all the time. I'm afraid of doing new things. I'm just not afraid to try, if that makes sense. I'm a little fearful every day. You'll have to read the book to hear about some of the scary things, some of the things that did happen, and I should have been afraid, but I survived it.
How do you get over the fear? Because I know that's one of the things you're really encouraging people to do, is don't let your fear stop you.
How do you get over it? Just do it. So you might have to research it. Like, I bought the RV. I bought the RV and I got in it, and I had never driven a motorhome before. I only had 4.5 hours to go. I gave them a check and I climbed in and I was going to leave. I never test drove it, nothing. And I couldn't drive it. And so it's all about solutions. Okay, I have a challenge. What do I do to fix it? And just keep going. Just keep looking for those solutions. If you really want to do something, faith and courage. Faith and courage. If you really want to do it, you can do it.
Just decide to do it. I think you said earlier when we were talking, all of a sudden you got a bus and you never took a bus driver course.
Right.
But you instantly said, I'm going to go find someone who can teach me how to do this.
Absolutely. And that same day, I
That same
found
day.
somebody that knew someone, and it was a week later before he could meet me and do the private lesson. But yeah, I just, if there's something standing in my way, if you really want to do it, nothing should stop you.
Well, I think you said something real important I want to underline for our viewers, which is how do you get over fear? You said just do it. There was a wonderful book I read years ago called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And the idea is like, the fear's not going to go away just by sitting there going, oh, wait till the fear disappears. If we all waited until the fear disappeared, none of us ever would have jumped into a pool from a diving board, right?
Right.
You know, I'm going to go to see a therapist, and when I get rid of the fear of jumping into liquids, I'll come back. None of us did that. We just jumped, we survived, and we kept on going.
I almost turned around once.
Did
One
you?
of the biggest fears, I was driving across the mountains. I was in Wyoming, and there was a really large mountain that was between Laramie and Cheyenne, Wyoming. And I thought that it started in Laramie, and I got myself so worked up because I didn't know how to drive in mountains. The guy that taught me we weren't in mountains to try that. We did everything but mountains. And people kept saying, don't burn up your brakes. Don't keep your foot on the brake, because if you burn up your brakes, then you have no brakes, and then you're in big trouble. And I had myself so worked up that I actually stopped at the rest area before the mountain and considered finding someone that would drive my rig across the mountain. And when I came across, several times I almost turned around. I thought, I made it this far. I did this. And I thought, I made it this far. That means I have to keep going.
Yeah.
And I went over the mountain. That's the day I really thought I was going to die. But
And you
I
didn't?
survived it. I didn't.
I was in Mexico in an RV going up a hill when the gas, people had put paper in my gas tank. I didn't know it. Got into the fuel line.
Oh, wow.
There was no fuel getting to the engine. And I had to back down a mountain with cars all behind me, 2-lane highway, with my foot on the brakes, going backwards, with my wife going, come around, so I can totally relate.
Right.
At least you didn't have to do that.
Right.
So if people are out there watching and they're sitting there going, oh, well, I've thought about RVing, but, I don't know. What advice would you give them if they were thinking about becoming a full-time RVer for either a year or the rest of their life? What advice would you have to give them?
I would say go somewhere and rent one. Live in it for a month.
Okay.
Move into it. Not in your driveway. Take it to an RV park, take it to a place, and live in it. Take the things that you think you're going to need from home, and you cannot go home in that 30 days. You have to go live.
And they'll find out what it's really all about.
Right.
I
They'll
love
figure
it.
out whether they can or can't do it. It's not for everyone.
I love it. Now, tell us a lesson or two you've learned from all of this. Like what's been the personal growth for you in taking on this adventure?
I was very rigid. I had to have a plan. I had to have a schedule for everything. And with this, I have really pushed myself to live outside that box and to let some things go. Being late made me crazy. Just everything had a schedule. There was a plan. And though I still need a plan, I know where I'm going to end up. I just don't always know how I'm going to get there, and that's okay.
And that's a good lesson for life in general. As long as you know where you want to get to,
Right.
a goal you have, whatever, and then be open to whatever shows up along the way. Often doesn't match our plan particularly, but it'll get us there. Beautiful. Now, I know you have your book.
Right.
You speak and share your lessons and all that kind of stuff. So if people wanted to find out more about how to reach you, where would they go?
They could go to my website,
Yeah.
www.bumpingdownhighways.com. They can email me, Jenny, Jenni, at bumpingdownhighways.com.
All right.
Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, I'm everywhere.
And you're constantly posting and letting people know where you are and
Right.
all that good stuff so they can follow you. Perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I wish we had more time. I'm sure you got 10 hours worth of stories you can
That's
share
all
with us.
right. We'll talk
Unfortunately,
again.
we don't. I look forward to it. Thank you for joining us
Thank
today.
Thank you.
All right, you know where to go. Go to her website, get her book. It's a lot. It's very, very interesting. All right, stick around. We have one more segment after this, and we'll come right back.